Okay, so a warm welcome to you all. My name is Amarapuspa. I'm an order member with the Brixton Triratna group, and together with Viryanaga, the chair of the Brixton Triratna, we're leading a 4-week course on ritual, and we're in week 2. And if you tuned in tonight, please say hello in the chat room. And also, as we move along, if any questions occur to you, please feel free to call in. So last week, we were looking at this area of why ritual. So we started out with why ritual. And I just wanted to say, I think what came out last week was how we all have different associations with words, and probably most of you have more rituals in your life than you realize. And I think we concluded at some point that most of us need to have some kind of ritual in our lives. For example, when someone dies, it's quite universal that most people would want to honor somebody with some kind of prayer, some kind of collective celebration. And these can be simple or elaborate, but in that situation, obviously, it adds meaning to the situation that we're in. And we also talked about definitions of ritual, and Viryanaga had a definition, and I can't remember his, but I remember I had one about how it's a collective, it's an action, a ritual is an action, so it's some kind of movement that you make or using the body to act in some way, and it's expressive of common aspiration or striving, and rooted in common values. And that could include anything, including a football match and people collectively cheering for the team. That, in a sense, is a type of ritual where people are coming together and something is becoming bigger than the individual people. So with Buddhist ritual, it's similar that we need to understand why we do ritual. I think in those situations the people understand why they're doing it. And the purpose of this course is for us to explore more why it's important for us as Buddhists to do ritual. And particularly as we're not in a Buddhist countries, and even though Buddhism is a universal religion, it can have all sorts of foreign, exotic overlay and could be quite difficult for us Westerners to understand. But put very simply, Buddhism is a path of transformation. It's a path where we look to transcend the self, to move towards something much higher and bigger than the fixed individual self. And ritual is a very, very effective way of helping us do it. I think anyone who tries to practice a path, a spiritual path, can know how difficult that is, how much pulls us away from us staying with the aspiration. And while ritual can take us past the rational conceptual mind, which is what we need to do in the spiritual path, to open up to this bigger mystery of enlightenment, which is beyond concepts. At the same time, we need to understand why we do that. We need to use our rational facility along with our imaginal facility. So I really enjoyed the discussion with Viryanaga last week around this, exploring this. And this week, we're moving from why ritual to the symbolism of the shrine and particularly offering as part of ritual. So another aspect of Buddhist ritual and Buddhist practice in general is finding ways to become wholehearted. Um, I'm sure I'm not alone in feeling that I'm often fragmented, divided. I have aspirations, but things are pulling me away. Ritual is an opportunity to come together with our bodily movements, our voices, words, hearing each other. There's also fragrance, beauty, light. So there are all these different things going on. And what I'll start with in terms of the shrine is I guess I can't think of any other, we by and large make the Buddha the focal point of the shrine. And as you will see, we have a quite large Buddha here. And this evolved over the centuries after the Buddha's death. The Buddha lived over 2,500 years ago, taught for over 45 years, had a huge effect on people as a living embodiment of enlightenment. And for a couple of hundred years, people kept the memory alive through his words, through stories. But then the more and more there got to be a yearning to make a live connection with the Buddha, to have something that spoke to people emotionally, that would to make the Buddha and his teachings much more tangible. And that's when Buddha images started coming into being. And even in the West now, obviously they're very, very popular. We see them in all sorts of contexts, including garden centers, even hairdressers. Obviously there's something about it that speaks to people, this still meditating Buddha. But for us as Buddhists, particularly in terms of ritual, the Buddha represents the ideal of enlightenment. The Buddha represents our highest potential, and we also it also gives us an opportunity to express reverence and gratitude towards how the Buddha's teaching has freed us from suffering, and that's seen as a very important spiritual quality, gratitude and reverence. Now, last week, Viryanaga and I talked about the word worship, and he connected with that word, and I find it a turn off, and we all have our associations, but for me the word reverence is very important, to have something I revere and hold sacred, and that Buddha is a symbol for something. As I said last week, it's an image or a symbol that's visible, that represents something not visible. So something quite mysterious but deeply inspiring for me. And the Buddha himself stressed how important it is to have something to look up for, even after he gained enlightenment. He said this is a human need, to revere something and look up and hold something sacred. So we have in Triratna, as a Western Buddhist tradition, adopted the traditional offerings that are by and large have been used in the first Buddhist movement or large Buddhist school, the Theravadan tradition today. And their traditional offerings are light, flowers, and incense. This is often a part of our rituals. Incense, not so much these days because people tend to be affected by it. But these offerings come into our puja. We also have adopted a practice from another great school of Buddhism, the Mahayana, which is to have offering bowls on the shrine. And I have a few offering bowls, and these go back to the Indian tradition of welcoming a guest and all the things you would offer a guest, like water for feet to wash, perfumed water, food, music. I mean, traditionally, well, there's a very highly developed tradition of hospitality and welcoming a guest in traditional India. And it's evolved to just having water in these bowls to represent that spirit of welcoming. And in a sense, it's welcoming the Buddha, inviting the Buddha to enter our lives. And there's a tradition too that a guest that's unexpected is even more welcome. So I guess for many of us haven't been expecting to be Buddhists. I think I didn't expect to be. And the Buddha erupted kind of in my life. So there's kind of getting into that connection of wonder too, of welcoming the Buddha as a guest. So I've said quite a bit. Viryanaga, I'm sure you have quite a few things you might resonate with. I hope I haven't run on too long.
It's a very good and full introduction, I think, to it. So I guess it's a really interesting area, and I really like that idea of hospitality with the little offering bowls in a way. I really like the idea that they're sort of symbolic representations of welcoming in a guest, welcoming in a teacher almost.
Yes,
so
yes.
It took me ages to sort of work out what they were for. I used to come to the Buddhist and there's always little pots of water on the shrine, and I'm like, what are they about anyway? And when I learned what they're all for, I was like, oh, that just, in some ways, like that's much more accessible than like hospitality to a guest than perhaps devotion to a shrine is early on or something.
Yes, yes.
And someone sort of turns up at your house. Oh, also, do you want some dinner?
That's right.
That lovely thing.
Kind of inviting the Buddha in. As a living energy or something.
So I wonder if we should say something about the sort of general, the Buddha being gold and substantial and other things as well. Do you want me to launch into that?
You sure?
Yeah. So I think we mentioned it. We mentioned it on the last week, didn't we? The Buddha representing the ideals. One doesn't have to be a Buddhist in order to sort of pay your respects to a shrine. It can represent our highest aspiration. I think that's what we're talking about.
Yes.
And Buddhas are quite often gold because quite often gold because of it's said to be the colour of enlightenment. I think that's right, isn't it? It's said to be the colour of enlightenment, but almost like God. I think it's in some of the stories that there's a disciple and he says, sir, your skin is as if you were glowing, as if you were gold or something.
Yes. It comes up a lot in different Buddhist texts. Right? Pure gold. Your limbs are pure gold. Things like that.
So again, that would be a sort of symbol, wouldn't it? I sort of imagine if the Buddha were here, obviously it wouldn't actually be made of gold, or it would be shiny, but it would sort of glow as if you were gold or something.
Yes, perhaps in our imaginations. Yeah. I mean, but it is quite an idealized, stylized. So we don't really have a portrait of what the Buddha looked like 2,500 years ago. And I also see the gold as representing something precious, and we have this sort of jeweled Buddha, and that jewelry, holding something precious is very important in Buddhism. Hence the 3 jewels at the center of our practice, which we're wearing on our cases, which is a whole other area.
Well, maybe we should mention it because it does relate to something I'm going to say a bit later on. So the 3 jewels we would consider, the gold jewel is the Buddha, effectively what we're paying respects to here, the blue jewel being the Dharma, the path, and the red jewel being Sangha, or the spiritual community, particularly the community of enlightened followers of the Buddha, but more broadly it can also mean the whole Sangha as well. Great. And I wonder if we should say something about the things which are usually on the shrine, the flowers and incense and candles. If you've got anything to say about that.
Well, I do think light is often, obviously, enlightenment. Light is often a way to connect with that ideal of enlightenment. Flowers or transient beauty. And I chose these flowers tonight. Somehow I was thinking about the gold Buddha, and somehow these sunflowers, these also often compared to the sun as well, these sunflowers.
It just reminded me that he said to eliminate darkness, isn't he?
Yes,
so
yes.
the ignorance, the darkness.
That's right, the darkness of ignorance. Yeah. And beauty is a part of ritual. So a beauty is very much, it helps us sensitize, become more refined, which meditation does as well. But it sensitizes us to be more open to more inner beauties, so more and more subtle beauty. And obviously a candle, very beautiful as well. And the incense, again, I guess these are different aspects of our senses as well. So with the fragrance of incense, and sometimes we have the fragrance of flowers. Again, it's this whole of our being, so we're bringing our senses in. I meant to bring a bell because sometimes some traditions, will have sound as well, but of course we have our voices and mantra.
It might be worth saying that these things are symbols, and the feature of a symbol is it can mean lots of different things.
Yes.
So, it's multivalent, as we would say. It can mean there's not just a literal reason why a candle's on the shrine or a flower.
Yes.
You've got all the different aspects of the beauty. And in the short ritual that we do at the end, there's a line in the Pooja, isn't there, about the flowers being fresh and sweetly blooming. Today they're fresh and sweetly blooming, and tomorrow they're faded and fallen. So they're sort of symbolic of impermanence, symbolic of that. And that itself is also symbolic of the Buddha's teaching as well.
Yes.
So I sort of love the idea that within the shrine, there's so many different layers and levels and symbols and signs and things that you can kind of explore in a way. I mean, this is a fairly modest, it's a beautiful but fairly modest shrine. You can have absolutely enormous shrines, they're like sort of works of art.
Yes. And I'm sure people may have seen, some Buddhist traditions that there might be a lot of food on the shrine. You and I were in India, and I think we came across that quite a bit. And I guess that's more from the Vajrayana Tibetan tradition, where you're bringing Buddhism into everyday experience, but also you're offering, I guess, what comes through the senses, like food, and again the smell and the taste and the light, but also offering it to the Buddha as a guest. I've even been in lovely tea ceremonies where we offer the Buddha a cup of tea, and that's just very, very, very beautiful.
So if you were to sort of give some advice to somebody setting up a shrine for the first time, what would you say to them?
I guess for me, it's looking for a way to feel inspired and wholehearted. So I would look for something that you would find beautiful and uplifting. If the Buddha is an ideal, I mean, when I did my first shrine, I looked around for different Buddha figures, and it took quite a while before I found somebody. But in the meantime, I had candles and flowers, but there could be, it's very individual. There's no size fits all. And even though we are paying tribute to some Buddhist traditions around offerings that don't have to be specifically these. And certainly we've been on retreats, I'm sure we've seen many other types of offerings as well.
I mean, for me it feels like as long as it's meaningful, as long as it does really represent what you're sort of paying respect to, or in a certain way, looking up to or trying to cultivate. Maybe there's some pictures on there that make you feel gratitude, or maybe there's a little memento about a time with your friend or something. Just little things that kind of are in the spirit of growth.
Yes. Even a quote or something that really lives lifts the heart, and something separate from everyday life that's is important. And I mean, lately I've done this before too. I've been making internal offerings as well. So in order to, last week I talked about it, ritual being a two-way street. That we're open to something happening with other people and the words, but also making a bit of an effort to bring myself in more. I think about things I've seen that really touch my heart, and I offer that. And today I saw two beautiful butterflies together, a peacock butterfly and a tiny blue. And I just would like to, that being moved and inspired by that. I don't want to keep that to myself. I want to offer that to the Buddha who really inspires me.
Yes.
And so I'll do that internally, and it keeps me more engaged with the offering, because like anything, we can do it by rote because it has a form. You walk up to the shrine, you light a candle, and you can, which is what we can just zone out a bit, which isn't a big problem, but.
I'd really like to talk about the act of making an offering at the moment, but that just makes me think that you don't have to limit your offerings to being in a shrine room or being in front of your shrine. If you
That's
see,
right.
I was on a retreat recently, and we were on the same retreat, the Brixton retreat, which happened with the LBC, and people were posting photographs of beautiful glimpses they had in this chat room. And to me, they felt like offerings. They felt like people kind of, like saying, "Oh, this is beautiful. This inspired me," and they're sort of like wanting to share it with people. It felt like the same spirit of an offering. So I guess, I'm quite a keen camper. I'm quite a keen walker, and often if I'll camp under a tree, I'll do a little ritual around the tree or something. Just in a way to. I don't quite know why I do that, but something to connect me with the place that, it's protecting me, it's going to shelter me. So I'm sort of like, doing a little offering to it in a way. So I guess we can do that wherever, and maybe that should be encouraged to sort of, whenever you feel devotional or reverential, just make a little offering, even if it's just in your mind.
In a sense, it's taking it seriously, isn't it? It's really valuing it. Your gratitude or your feeling of being inspired by the beauty. And I just think our perception of these things are something very precious in us, that we perceive this beauty. And so it's a precious jewel that we can offer and make even more precious by doing having the space to make some kind of ritual around it.
Yeah, I think that's very good, isn't it? Yeah. And I, just speaking personally, I mean, my life feels significantly enriched by weaving those little rituals in. Some of them are very individual, but I sort of couldn't imagine my life without that sort of dimension of sort of some magic almost, or a little bit of appreciation and wonder. Day to day.
Yes. We talked last week about the whole wonder aspect and getting away from feeling. For me, getting away from, I guess, my egotistical thinking I had all the answers and being a bit cynical about ritual, seeing it as a bit childish and naive after my religious experience growing up, and then just opening up to, I don't know all the answers. I don't know, and there have been and are beings much more evolved and wiser than I am, and I need help. I need help from I can't do it all on my own. And so when I bow, I know Westerners can see that. I used to see it as very demeaning, a very demeaning thing to bow to the shrine. But when I started doing it, it felt like a relief. It felt like a letting go of having to be somebody that knew.
It's a very interesting moment, isn't it? Because I've led quite a few retreats and rituals on retreats with newer people, and even people that have been coming quite a long time. That kind of first offering to the shrine feels like quite significant for some people. It's quite loaded almost, almost like it's a bit like what you were saying earlier. It's we pay sort of respect with our body, speech, and mind, but to sort of okay to sit there and join in, but to actually stand up and to go through the physical act, it sort of makes it something somehow a bit more real, doesn't it?
Yes.
Don't know if you got any reflections on that sort of first time you made an offering, or to build up to it or something.
It felt very significant the first time I got up, because it was transcending a lot of my old views about that kind of thing. But I also knew I was inspired, and that I wanted to hold something sacred that had really inspired me. And something about my body engaging, it helped my mind get more engaged as well. I got more, it felt like a much richer participation. And it felt like an embodied, and I've been searching for feeling wholehearted for a long time, and it really got me significantly along the way to feeling more wholehearted, to bring my body into it like that.
I guess it's very hard to really feel, or I mean, I sort of notice if I don't make an offering in a ritual, I feel like a bit like an observer, even if I'm just saying it. Like there's something about going up that does make it somehow more substantial as a practice.
It does, but at the same time, I guess the caveat that I said last week is I just hope people just do what they feel comfortable doing.
Absolutely.
Because, I mean, it's good to be adventurous and try it, but don't do it just because everybody else is doing it. Maybe you might be the only new person there, and it just doesn't feel right. So, again, we're coming back to the Buddha talking to us, going to go back to our experience, and there isn't a one size fits all. There may be all sorts of very good reasons why it's not the right time for people to do it.
I definitely agree with that, and I often encourage people to. Well, I often remind them that it doesn't make them a Buddhist, just exploring something, trying something out. And also, I often tend to, what I found is reassuring people about the form of making an offering is very helpful, because I think, particularly in our tradition, in Triratna, there seems to have been a sort of form that's evolved. Quite often people sort of get up, they bow, they light a candle, a bit of incense, they put it on the shrine, and then they sort of bow down 3 times. That just seems to have been adopted as the default. But of course,
I thought I was the first one.
But in a certain way, there's no reason why it needs to be that way, is there?
No, absolutely.
You could do all sorts. Like you can ring a bell, you could do a roly poly, you could do whatever.
Right. You could just bow. You could just slightly nod your head. It doesn't matter.
So
roly poly, I like that.
Well, I guess another. I'm on a bit of a campaign actually, because sometimes I feel our rituals can be a bit somber. They can be a little bit like flat or something. And Bhante famously said that. It's a celebration, you should think about dressing up, put on your best clothes, put on your colourful clothes, and come and kind of make it exuberant and rich, and maybe as if like you're going out to the theatre for the night, going to the West End or whatever.
Yes.
So I sort of like I sort of feel that we can get a bit, particularly when there are mantras and offerings, people can get a bit kind of. I feel stuck in a sort of groove with it,
You're serious and mindful. But it's people are also meditating. Will have meditated too, and I agree with I think sometimes people need to be encouraged or even feel like they have permission, because we tend to be pick up cues from each other and. Check out what's the right way to do things, and then before we know it, we're all copying each other, and we've sort of locked down into something. So it's good to talk about that as well.
I guess speaking personally, if I'm leading a ritual, I'm delighted just to have people engage, and I don't really mind how they engage.
That's right.
Whether that's in a variety of offerings or whatever. So. Maybe that's just an open invitation for people to do what they do.
I've been to pujas where people get up and dance, and we do have more elaborate rituals where we have music, instruments, and things. Usually on festivals, and that's wonderful because it is about bringing our energies together. It's interesting you mentioned like going out to the theatre, because there was one thing I wanted to mention too, is it is a bit like an enactment, or there is a theatrical element where we're acting as if, we can act as if we're enlightened. We say the words and we connect with and that can have a very beneficial effect, because all of our practice is trying to make new positive habits. But it really moves on when you take part in ritual and you're really focusing on those ideals and doing it together with each other, sharing your ideals, feel supported. And there's an as if, you don't have to worry about where you are. It doesn't matter, just by being around other people who are acting as if, being around the image of the Buddha, words of enlightened or very advanced teachers, it's going to permeate somehow. It's going to have a positive effect.
That's really interesting, isn't it? You sort of have to imagine the possibilities before you can sort of make progress towards them.
That's right, yes.
And I guess a ritual is a way of sort of, or giving you a bit of starting material. A beautiful shrine, some words that maybe are inspiring or imaginative to try and kind of kickstart your imagination to imagine what it might be like to be a realised being, or associate with a realised being, to get, just like you say, get yourself into that.
And to rejoice that it's possible, that, it is possible, and not to close down and feel, oh, I'm so far away. We all have that possibility, and there is a higher aspect of ourselves we can open up to when we're in these situations.
Great. I mean, I'm just aware that maybe we need to wrap up for this bit. But is there anything else that?
No, I think.
I thought it was really good. I think we covered quite a bit there.
Yeah, enjoyed that. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So just having a quick look at the chat room. So welcome Stephen from Ireland, by the way. No questions in the chat room today. But you can always put them in the comments section below the video, and then someone will get back to you about that. Okay, so so we're gonna we'll do a what's going to happen now is I'm going to say a little bit about. Well, in a moment, I'm going to say a little bit about one of the rituals that we will do, and we'll do a bit of meditation. We'll do a short ritual. Amarapuspa is going to lead us in a ritual. So I'll say a bit about that in a moment. But what I want to do first of all is I want to ask you for money. As you know, the Brixton Buddhist community is a charity. It's all run off people's donations. And you've probably heard me say this many times before, but the reason we keep saying it each week is it does just keep needing money. So we have a target of raising £2,000 every month, and all of that money just comes from people like you who are watching at home, deciding to be generous and deciding to support the community. So if you're appreciating these videos or appreciating the live streams that we do think about making a donation. You can make a one-off donation on our website. But also, if you're a regular visitor here, a regular community member or otherwise, or you just like watching our content, you might just want to think about making a regular standing order, because then it's just done and you don't have to worry about it. So I believe our donometer this week is on £1,008. I think that's correct. £107. Very, very important. Get that right. And we had a few more donations on Monday, so they'll be added to the donometer at the end of the week, plus whatever you give tonight. So about halfway through the month, so I'm crossing my fingers that we'll make that £2,000 for the month. So there'll be a link in the chat room and in the description. So if you want to support us, that'd be great. Thanks very much. Okay, so I'm going to say a little bit now about meditation and ritual that we're going to do. Firstly, I want to introduce a little mini ritual that often happens before Dharma classes or before meditation classes, and it's something that if you've been to a Buddhist centre, you may have heard somebody say, "Okay, now let's salute the shrine," and suddenly everybody stands up, and there's and everyone does a little bit of call and response. So I just want to introduce that and explain that for you, for anyone who so either hasn't done it or has done it and doesn't know what it entails, because it's really relevant for this week's theme. So the saluting the shrine, it's in Pali, and it says Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dhammaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Nama, Om Ahum. And that's done in call and response. There'll be a leader and somebody repeating that. What that means is it literally means sort of homage or respect to the Buddha, homage or respect to the Dharma, and homage and respect to the Sangha. And we talked about Buddha, Dharma and Sangha a little bit earlier on. And then Namo Nama means I bow in respect. And then Om Ahum is very interesting. So they're sound syllables, they're kind of symbols themselves of something else. Often occur in mantras at several points, but in this instance they mean Om means the body, Ah means the speech, and Hum means the mind. So you've got that same body, speech and mind set of things. So you're basically saying I'm paying respect to the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha with my body, speech and mind. So that, for me, that's really evocative and a really great way of starting something off. You know, and like I keep saying, it doesn't just because you participate doesn't mean that you're necessarily a Buddhist, but it just mean that you're paying respect. I mean, I think that if I go into a sort of church or a mosque, although I'm not a member of their tradition, their religious tradition, and my beliefs might be somewhat different, I still go in there with great respect, you know, so I definitely will want to pay respect to people I consider making effort on a spiritual path. So it's just sort of, for me, that sort of gesture of respect. So anyway, I hope you know a bit more about that now. So we'll actually do that in a moment before the meditation. You can join in with us at home if you want to. The other thing I just want to say is a little bit about the ritual that we're doing today. So we'll do what's called a threefold puja again tonight. So we did that last session as well. And that's with these three simple verses. And again, these verses are really, there's actually a whole section on offerings and offerings to the Buddha about the candles and incense and the flowers. So it's really lovely. So you can just try to let yourself go with that and maybe just imagine those offerings, maybe make those offerings in your mind, or if you've got a shrine at home, you could make those offerings to your shrine as well, an offering, a symbolic offering to the shrine. And we will, as last week, we will have a reading, and we've decided to do all our readings out of the Dhammapada. So this is a very ancient Buddhist text, a really neat summary of Buddhist principles and ideals. So I'll be doing a short section out of that in the puja. So again, you can just listen to that. You don't need to repeat that back or follow along. You can just let that wash over you. And then at the end, there'll be a mantra. So we're going to talk in more depth about mantras next week. This is a symbol of itself. So it contains the sound symbols of, in this case, Om and Hum, but also it's a symbol of a sort of Buddha figure or a quality of enlightenment that we're going to try to kind of embody or personify or connect with. So you'll hear lots more about that next week. Just to say that I'll be doing the Padmasambhava Mantra tonight, and that mantra is particularly associated with transformation. So just as Amarapuspa was summarising, that's the Buddhist. In a nutshell, that's what the Buddhist path is all about. This mantra in particular is associated with transformation. So I've probably talked enough. So what we will do is we'll salute the shrine together. In call and response. Salute the shrine in call and response. And then I'll lead us in a very short meditation, maybe only 10 minutes or so, but I'll just lead us in a short gratitude reflection, gratitude meditation. So I think we just let Amarapuspa get her bits and pieces. So we'll do the saluting the shrine in call and response, so I'll lead that, and Amarapuspa can just repeat back. Namo Buddhaya.
Namo Buddhaya.
Namo Dhammaya.
Namo Dharmaya.
Namo Sanghaya.
Namo Sanghaya.
Namo Namah.
Namo Namah.
Om.
Om.
Ah.
Ah.
Ho.
Ho.
So now we've paid our respects to the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. We can get ourselves set up for a short period of meditation. So you don't need to sit on cushions here, you can just get comfortable in your chair, wherever you are. But just try to have your feet flat on the floor if you're sitting in a chair. If you're on cushions, just try to sit upright so you don't slouch, just so you feel alert and awake. At the same time, just trying to ground ourselves, a sense of contact, groundedness, relaxation. You just start to tune in to the sensations of your breathing, so particularly the sensations of the air entering your body, your chest expanding, and just leaving again. Just the flow of the breath in the body. And all you need to do at this point is just keep bringing the awareness into the breath. If you find that there's some energy taking you elsewhere, just trying to gently bring it back. Just seeing if we can wait on the breath for a minute or so, just so our awareness starts to ground. Awareness of the body sensations perhaps starts to increase. Maybe our mind feels a little less scattered. And then in this gratitude reflection, what I'd like you to do first of all is just start to bring to mind anything that you have done for yourself today that you feel grateful for. So it doesn't have to be anything very complex. And perhaps just be preparing yourself some food, just looking after your body. Perhaps you took some time to relax today. Perhaps you meditated. Seeing if there's any sense of appreciation for the care that you've given yourself today. Sometimes you might find this a bit difficult, but we all look after ourselves. Just see if we can bring that to mind. just allow ourselves to feel a bit of gratitude for the energy that we put into looking out for ourselves and our bodies. And then from ourselves we can start to broaden that appreciation out to others. So are there other people that you're grateful for in your life? The people that have helped you, or just friends that you appreciate, that have done things for you, been there for you, people that you just like being around, that make you happy. So perhaps just bringing some of these people to mind, maybe just one or two of these individuals that you appreciate. Perhaps even reflecting on some of the things that they have brought you. Just seeing if we can feel that sense of appreciation, particularly where it's grounded in the body, where it's in the body, perhaps in the heart or chest area. Maybe a sense of openness, warmth. And again, it could be as simple as someone who's made you a cup of tea. Or it could be somebody that you're extremely close to, is an integral part of your life. And again, let's see if we can broaden that out a bit further. And particularly in this, what will be the last stage, just seeing if we can bring to mind, first of all, the person that has taught us something. A person that, through interaction with them, you've learned something. Perhaps you think of them as a mentor or a teacher. And this could, of course, be somebody that you know, but it could also be the Buddha. Also be the Buddha. Perhaps you could reflect on what this teaching this person has given you, has had on your life, the effect it's had on your life. Perhaps trying to get a sense of how your life has been enriched through that. In a way, through that generosity of that person, your life has been enriched. And seeing if you can get a sense of any sensation or thought of gratitude and appreciation. And just maybe just noting how you feel at the moment, how a short meditation, even just the 10 minutes or so, just maybe seeing if you notice that that's had an effect in any way. So your experience is a little more open. As your body feels a bit softer, as you feel a bit warmer. Perhaps you just notice that you're a bit distracted and uncomfortable, but that's okay as well. And you can just let those images go, and those reflections, appreciation of those people, just go for the moment. When you're ready, we can just bring this short meditation to a close.
The threefold puja. Opening reverence. We reverence the Buddha,
We reverence the Buddha,
the perfectly enlightened one,
the perfectly enlightened one,
the shower of the way.
the shower of the way.
We reverence the Dharma,
We reverence the Dharma,
the teaching of the Buddha,
the teaching of the Buddha,
which leads from darkness to light.
which leads from darkness to light.
We reverence the Sangha,
We reverence the Sangha,
the fellowship of the Buddha's disciples,
the fellowship of the Buddha's disciples,
that inspires and guides.
that inspires and guides. Reading from the Dhammapada. Many people, out of fear, flee for refuge to sacred hills, woods, groves, trees, and shrines. In reality, this is not a safe refuge. In reality, this is not the best refuge. Fleeing to such a refuge, one is not released from all suffering. He who goes for refuge to the enlightened one, to the truth, and to the spiritual community, and who sees with perfect wisdom the four Aryan truths, namely suffering, the origin of suffering, the passing beyond suffering, and the Aryan Eightfold Way leading to the pacification of suffering. For them, this is a safe refuge. For them, this is the best refuge. Having gone to such a refuge, one is released from all suffering. Hard to come by is the ideal person. They are not born everywhere. Where such a wise one is born, that family grows happy. Happy is the appearance of the enlightened ones. Happy is the teaching of the Siddharma. Happy is the unity of the spiritual community. Happy is the spiritual effort of the united. He who reverences those worthy of reverence, whether enlightened ones or their disciples, who have transcended illusion and passed beyond grief and lamentation. He who reverences those who are of such nature, who moreover are at peace and without cause for fear. His merit is not to be reckoned as such and such.
Reverence to the three jewels. We reverence the Buddha.
We reverence the Buddha.
And aspire to follow him.
And aspire to follow him.
The Buddha was born as we are born.
The Buddha was born as we are born.
What the Buddha overcame, we too can overcome.
What the Buddha overcame, we too can overcome.
What the Buddha attained, we too can attain.
What the Buddha attained, we too can attain.
We reverence the Dharma.
We reverence the Dharma.
And aspire to follow it.
And aspire to follow it.
With body, speech and mind until the end.
With body, speech and mind until the end.
The truth in all its aspects.
The truth in all its aspects.
The path in all its stages.
The path in all its stages.
We aspire to study.
We aspire to study.
Practice.
Practice.
Realize.
Realize.
We reverence the Sangha.
We reverence the Sangha.
And aspire to follow it.
And aspire to follow it.
The fellowship of those who tread the way.
The fellowship of those who tread the way.
As one by one.
As one by one.
We make our own commitment.
We make our own commitment.
An ever-widening circle.
An ever-widening circle.
The Sangha grows.
The Sangha grows.
Offerings to the Buddha. Reverencing the Buddha.
Reverencing the Buddha.
We offer flowers.
We offer flowers.
Flowers that today.
Flowers that today.
Are fresh and sweetly blooming.
Are fresh and sweetly blooming.
Flowers that tomorrow.
Flowers that tomorrow.
Are faded and fallen.
Are faded and fallen.
Our bodies too, like flowers.
Our bodies too, like flowers.
Will pass away.
Will pass away.
Reverencing the Buddha.
Reverencing the Buddha.
We offer candles.
We offer candles.
To him who is the light.
To him who is the light.
We offer light.
We offer light.
From his greater lamp.
From his greater lamp.
A lesser lamp we light within us.
A lesser lamp we light within us.
The lamp of Bodhi.
The lamp of Bodhi.
Shining within our hearts.
Shining within our hearts.
Reverencing the Buddha.
Reverencing the Buddha.
We offer incense.
We offer incense.
Incense whose fragrance pervades the air.
Incense whose fragrance pervades the air.
The fragrance of the perfect life.
The fragrance of the perfect life.
Sweeter than incense.
Sweeter than incense.
Spreads in all directions.
Spreads in all directions.
Throughout the world.
Throughout the world. Om Ahong Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Ahong Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Ahong Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Ahong Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum.
Om Ahong Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Ahong Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Ahong Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Ahong Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum.
Om Ahom Vajaguru Padma Siddhi Om. 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 Om Vajaguru Padma Siddhi Om.